Well, hello. I had a lot of questions on this barn that we built out of poles, electrical highline poles. So I thought I'd make another video and try to explain it a little better. Maybe I didn't explain it good enough the first time. But I'm in this heated part of our barn we call the milk house. But I'll explain that as we go. But I'm going to walk into the main part of the barn here. And here you can see all these poles. So to start with, these are poles, and you can see the tag here. I don't know if you can or not. With that door open, it's hard to see. But these are the poles that our power comes to the farm down the road, you know, all across the country. These poles are carrying your power lines. So they're quite tall, and to start with, what we did is we used a string line and we squared this building. And I do have a cold, so I'm sound muffled. I'm sorry, but so you can see all these poles, and we squared this building. We made an X to make sure it was as square as possible, and we drilled our holes. These poles are 8 feet apart, so you want to, that's the starting. You want to get it as square as you can. These poles, none of them are the same size. So you're going to want to get it as square as you can, drill your holes, and then, of course, you're going to set your poles. These are very long poles, so you're going to need a front end loader or whatever you may have to lift them, to set them down. It's a two-man job. You can't do it alone. So keep that in mind. Now, when we set these poles in the holes, what we did is we started in the 4 corners. So we got the 4 corners all set, and then we tied a string after we got them tamped. The 4 corners, we got them tamped and where we wanted them. We tied a string on each end pole, so we had a straight line to follow to put these other poles in before we tamped them, because your hole is going to be big enough, hopefully, that you can move the pole around and get them. One side of the poles you want to be straight, because you're putting these boards on, and you want one side at least straight. So that's what you're doing. That's how we did it. So then, once all your poles are set, then you got something to work off of. And before I go upstairs and show you the loft, we put a center pole in on this end of the building where there's no door. And you're going to see there's none on this end because we have a door. So we have a 10-foot door. It's 10 wide by 10 high. The ceiling is 10 feet high. Now, you don't have to go that high. Depending on your pole lengths, you'll have to figure, everything out ahead of time. If you're going to have a loft, you want to know if you want enough room to stand up there. You'll have to figure it out. This could have been 8 foot high, but we went with 10 feet because our poles were fairly long, and I'll go upstairs and show you the height there we have. But anyway, the main building now, I didn't say that yet. So the door is 10 feet, and there's 2 feet in each side. So it's 14 feet. It's 14 feet wide. These are 2x10s for our loft. They're 16 inches on center. So you can see our floor joists for our loft are 2x10, and they're 16 inches on center. We did that because the hay that's going to go up there, we want to support the weight. So that the main structure is your poles, and then on the sides we have our lean-to. And we bought them square poles. So on the lean-to, the poles that we bought are 4x6s, I think they call them. And so we just used them because we didn't have enough of these round poles to do all that. You can use, if you have enough, to do that, but we did not. So that's why we use them. So I just measured the height of the lean-to, and it's roughly 9 feet up, 9 feet up. And how we figured that out, we cut them poles off when we figured out what we needed up here for our loft to get the roof pitch. You can see outside the barn the roof design we wanted. So that's what we went with here on our roof pitch. I hope it shows up okay for you guys. But I'm going to go upstairs and show you that. Before I go up though, I want to show you these boards that we nailed on for our loft boards to set on. Now, I've had people tell me that I should have notched these poles out for them to set in for the weight. But we didn't. We used ring shank nails, and they ain't going nowhere. But you can do what you want. Depends on how much time you want to spend. But we put one on each side. So that's what that's setting on there for support. So, and not all of these are 16 inches. It just depends on how it came out, like where these poles are. Some are closer, you know, you just wing it. Because your plywood, we got pretty thick plywood, 1/2 inch. Or no, it's 5/8, I think. So it's, you know, the plywood is strong itself to support weight also. And we had some bad plywood, so we just had extra wood. We had a soft spot, so we fixed it by doing that. You know, you do what you can with what you got. So, and it works really good. Mr. Donkey loves it, and so do the llamas. You know, I'm jumping around here, but I just thought of something else I need to explain or tell you guys. Them boards that go across for your tin on the outside, of course, we sheeted all this. You can see we just didn't tin it. The reason for that, and you can see on the ceiling, everything is sheeted before we tinned it. And there's a good reason for that. It's a lot warmer for your animals. And it's a proven fact. I mean, we got our cows, we got pole buildings that are, 2 of them that are wood before they're tinned, similar to this, and 2 that are just tinned. And the ones that have wood on before the tin, they're 15 degrees warmer when the cows are in there because the cows create heat. That tin, it gets really frosty and sweaty. I don't know, the wood is just better. We just found out that it's so much warmer. So it costs a little more. It might cost you an extra $400, but if you want to save the life of some animals, this is well worth the money. So back to the boards that go across. Even though you're tinning and you're going to be screwing into that wood like we did, we put the board, normally they're 3 feet on center, which these are, but when you get up here, I don't know if you can see that, they're in different places because we had different lengths of tin. And I know the lumber yard sometimes will sell you, they call factory seconds, they're only 7 feet long. So if that's what you have, you just got to space your boards to your tin length. It's pretty common sense. So, you know, who cares how it looks on the inside here? The outside is the tin. That's what looks nice. You want it warm and you want it to have protection or whatever you're going to do. You know, I explained the size of this door. It's 10 wide. The ceiling is 10 high. We did that for the simple fact that when Tisha and Mitchell moved out here, this was the first thing they had, and they needed storage for you know, for lawnmowers, whatever. Also for a vehicle. They could drive a vehicle in here, and at least you could get one vehicle in, and it actually is 32 feet deep. So if you had 2 small cars, you could actually get 2 cars in here. So that's why we did it. You know, you always got to think ahead that you might need it for something else someday, or a bad storm, a hailstorm, and you don't have enough room for vehicles or whatever you have, you can use your barn. So before we get any further with the outside and these, you know, things you got to do before you tin, I'm going to take you up to the loft here. So, you know, we nailed, like I said, with ring shank nails, and we did that by hand. You got to do it by hand. You can't buy a nailer with ring shank nails. Then the floor joists, we bought them brackets to fasten them. So that's how that is. These are nailed ring shank to the poles. You know, every so often you end up with one against a pole, and then we actually put a stub piece in. If you can see that up there, that is basically just to support the weight of the floor, the plywood. So, you know, as you go, you're going to see what you need to do to support this or that. Now, going up to the loft, you know, we just nailed this stairs, or it's a ladder. You know, you can do, we didn't want to do stairs because it takes up too much room in the barn. This barn isn't that big to begin with, so we just made this staircase. But this building that it's going up here is concrete floor. I'm going to show you this. Go in this room. It's concrete floor, and this is heated, just a baseboard heater plugged in to an outlet. And this is what we call our milk house. This is where we mix our milk. Anything for calves, washing bottles. We got water here. There's a small little 5-gallon, I think it is, or maybe it's a 10 or 15, I don't know. It's a real small hot water heater, just plugged in. And the drain, if you're wondering how the drain is, the drain just goes right outside the wall to the outside of the barn here. I'll show you this. Nothing fancy. The pipe is right there, and it just drains outside. And it don't freeze because it's heated in here, and there's a trap underneath the sink, just like your house. So you got no cold air coming back in here, and it's warm and it runs out. Pretty simple. You know, before we built this barn, we had water. This is a hydrant right here. And we had water brought to this area where we wanted the barn. We kind of had this all staked out with stakes. You know, this is pre-planning. We staked out this whole building about where we wanted to set it, and we knew we wanted this milk house. We had this all planned out. So we trenched the water and to get it to this side of the building. So this is where it came out. We didn't want it to come out right kind of in the middle of the room. We wanted it more in that wall. But when we actually started this building process, that's how it ended up. All right, let's go up this ladder. It's pretty easy to do. I can do it one-handed. Okay, so now I'm up here. All right, so here's our loft. And I am 6 feet tall, so I think the center is 8 feet high. Okay, we'll talk about the rafters now. Now you can see the poles. They are cut. Once we, you know, got the main part of the building done, and we actually did the loft, so we had somewhere to stand. And then we could come up here and cut our poles off to the height we needed. And to figure that out, you have to build a rafter. And these are all homemade rafters out of 2x6. And if you just build one rafter, you got to figure out your pitch. You want it to match the lean pitch. If you look outside the barn here, they're probably not exact, but they're really close. So to start with, you build one rafter, and we just cut the angles of the 2x6s on the ground. You lay it on the ground, and you got to make sure, because this is 10 feet wide, so you want to make sure your span ends up being more than 10 feet, because you got two boards here underneath supporting the rafter on the bottom here, same as we did under the floor joists. We got two boards, one here and one here, and they're two different levels because the pitch of the rafter to support the weight of the roof. Same as this roof. If you look outside the barn, the lean-to, they're just supported the same way, board on each side, ring shank nailed, all the same process, and the same angle as your rafters on your roof. And that's, you know, you figure all this out as you go, and hopefully it works out for you. So we had a lot of scrap pieces of wood, so when you cut your angles, you get your first one made, you know, we support it. We nailed on all these supports to hold them in the middle here. There's two different ways to do it, or there's several ways to do it, I should say, but that's how we did it. And you can see some of my angles aren't exact. So you build one rafter and you just set the rest right on top, and so they're all the same. And if you remember when I said that middle pole down below, this is the one that supports the back end of the barn. This one is the center of this loft, and it continues. This is the tallest pole in the whole building. So it goes all the way up and supports that last rafter, last two rafters, which, you know, these are all tied together too. So this end, I hope I'm explaining this. Sometimes I'm thinking and not speaking. But on the door end now, there's no center pole. We used 4x6s on each side, and that's the width of your door down below. And they come up and they support this wall. And we wanted a door, of course, on the loft. You'll see that on the outside of the barn on the pictures. And, you know, we framed out this wall just like you would in a house. We made a frame work with the doorway, and we set that in here and nailed it in. Pretty simple. So, you know, you kind of just do it in stages, and then you got your boards that tie it all together. And then, of course, plywood, which or chipboard that we used here, makes the whole building really strong. And you can see some other additions we did here just to support that end rafter. You know, there's a lot of ways to do it, but when you're not a professional carpenter, you do what you think is best. So that's what we did here. So in this loft, you know, there was other plans which never happened. You can close all this up down here if you want to keep heat down in the main part of your barn. But you know, it actually isn't too bad down here. Or even up here. We throw hay through here, or straw. That's why we left it open, or Mitchell did. Never did close it up. So you can throw hay and straw down through this area, you know, just to different pens if you make pens down below. So on this lean-to, you can see the two boards. They're offset for the pitch of the lean going down, and they are 2 feet on center. The lean-to roof boards are 2 feet on center. Same as the roof boards up here, the rafters, they're 2 feet on center. That's how we did it. You know, once you got your building up, you kind of decide how you're going to use it. So he's got pens set up. When we get twins or whatnot, when we got an extra calf, we can bring them in here for the time being and feed them, bottle feed them. And then he poured concrete here. This is going to be another enclosed building for a chicken coop. Right now it's a mess because you just throw extra stuff around. But you know, as time goes on, that's the plan. You can't get everything done right away, you know, so you just do it as you can. The last thing, I guess, would be the outside of your track for your doors. You know, you got to get all your track, all your wood on for your support for your track. Basically, your building has to be all wood done with the track before you can tin. And you guys probably know that. But well, I hope I answered some of your questions. Anyway, all right, this is the barn that we built with these poles. And like I said, you can make it any dimension depending on the length of your poles, but it works really good for us. We're very satisfied with this building, and I hope if you do one, you're happy with yours. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.